and definition of Vision Zero is a traffic safety policy that is focused on achieving safety for all road users. The key principles are traffic deaths and severe injuries are preventable. Crashes will occur, but severity can be reduced. And safety is everybody's responsibility. So after the city declared itself a Vision Zero city, a working group was formed, made up of residents, business owners, staff, and others to help develop goals, examine strategies, and actually assist with the production of this action plan that you see here and is posted on the city's website. The program takes a three-prong approach that includes engineering, enforcement, and education. And part of the plan is to continually monitor data. And this is data that is posted on the performance measure site, but we constantly track the annual number of fatal crashes and the annual number of serious injury crashes. And those are the numbers, these are the numbers for 2020. So I just want to go over a few of some of the things that have been accomplished or that are currently being worked on as part of Vision Zero. So this happened during the development of Vision Zero, an ordinance was passed that hands-free devices only were allowed in Tempe while driving. Traffic engineering and police departments started regularly scheduled discussions to talk about fatal crashes and a review of them to see what the causes were. And then also another thing that was suggested in Vision Zero was looking at pedestrian grade separations. And to that end, the city completed a joint study with ASU regarding pedestrian grade separations adjacent to campus. Some upcoming projects include new bike lanes on Scottsdale Road from Loop 202 north to Continental, a pedestrian signal on Scottsdale Road in that same stretch, pedestrian signal on the Western Canal at Guadalupe Road, which I think we have had a number of requests for, and then a pedestrian signal on the Kyrene Canal path at Warner Road. A couple of new signals in the city. Elliott Road and Shutterfly Way was recently completed. Well, actually, it's probably almost a year ago now. And then Broadway Road and Country Club Drive is under construction. We also have a number of intersection projects, which include modifications or improvements that help traffic flow. And when traffic is flowing smoother, there's less chances for, slamming on brakes, people trying to switch lanes because someone's not going fast enough. And just smooth flow improves safety. So these are some of the projects. You're probably aware of some of these or have seen some of them under construction. Rural and Southern, which is complete. Rural and Rio Salado Parkway, which is complete. And now Rural and University is under construction, and you may or may not have seen it because you might be avoiding the area because there's so much going on in that area right now. But and we also have the Priest and Grove Roundabout, which was recently completed. If you haven't had a chance to drive it yet, if you have a chance, you might want to, and let me know what you think about it. I think it came out really nice. There's actually a picture of it right there. And people seem to be using it correctly, so that's always a bonus. So, and then we have some new LED roadway lighting going in, and actually the Priest Drive lighting has gone in from city limit to city limit. And then on Rural Road, it's underway and about 75% complete, and that one is also city limit to city limit. Lastly, there are school projects, and that was to add the flashers at the high schools to notify 35 miles an hour when school's in session, and then adding the high visibility crosswalks at the elementary schools. And I'd like to stop and say thank you to both of you for starring in our video. I think the video came out great, and it was important to help get the word out about the projects that we're doing. So I appreciate that. And now, Tayana actually offered to present Lieutenant Swig's slides, so I'm going to turn it over to Tayana.
Good afternoon. Because Lieutenant Swig couldn't be here, I figured I'd briefly touch on the See Me Arizona campaign. In April of 21, the city worked with the Maricopa Association of Governments on this campaign. It was part of their regional safety plan. Tempe was selected as one of 4 of the pilot cities, and this was a blend of enforcement and education. They were focusing on pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists, with the key message that we're all responsible for each other and we need to pay attention to our surroundings and basically just make sure that we're looking out for one another. For the enforcement part of it, PD did focus around light rail stations as well as rural from Southern to Curry. There we go. They made 151 contacts, and a lot of that was educating the community on how they could be safer, and only the most serious violations receive citations. So part of what my office, as well as neighborhood services, does is the education part of it. For Vision Zero, most of our outreach is about raising awareness, how to be safe while driving, walking, and biking. And on this slide, you can see some of the ways we have gone about that. From pole banners along University Drive to stickers that we would hand out at community events, paid advertising, as well as working with community partners such as ASU, Tempe School Districts, DTA, and others. So we also focus on campaigns, and that would be kind of like when, you know, the city adopted the Vision Zero resolution, or we passed the distracted driving ordinance. And with projects like that, we still use our normal channels of communication, such as Tempe Today, social media, news releases, but with we generally get a lot more media attention. So with like the distracted driving ordinance, we were in the ASU State Press, we were in the Wrangler and the Arizona Republic, and I believe we had every news station come out the day that the distracted driving ordinance went into effect. So one last thing that is a big part of Vision Zero is the World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims. Now, this is a day where we take to like remember the many millions who have been killed or injured in traffic crashes, and to acknowledge the suffering of the victims, their families, and the communities. So since we adopted our Vision Zero resolution, we have done 2 events, one in 2019 and one in 2020. The 2019 event, we had displays with the 16 pairs of shoes at the library as well as at the Tempe Transportation Center. In 2020, we did it a little bit differently, where we had signs up at intersections, and it kind of called out, you know, who was the victim, and like the intersection, just letting people know that like this occurred here, and, you know, please be safe. So we are currently in the planning stages for our 2021 display, which you'll see in, I believe it's November 21st this year. And with that.
Okay, thanks, Diana. So just talk about going forward a little bit. Obviously, we want to continue with the implementation of the plan strategies. We're going to continue our meetings with traffic engineering and the lieutenant from the traffic squad to examine the underlying causes and contributing factors to accidents. As Tiana mentioned, we're going to continue to participate in Vision Zero World Remembrance Day to raise awareness. We'll continue with targeted education campaigns. We're also looking to develop safety countermeasures and cost estimates for those countermeasures so we can more efficiently develop projects. We're going to develop a program to check lighting levels, identify locations for potential protected left turn arrows, and other projects such as maybe additional roundabouts. We evaluate the need for potential safety corridors, or the idea of potential safety corridors. And I also wanted to let you know that I'm in the process of hiring a new staff member that will be dedicated to assisting with the Vision Zero program. Finally, I'm just going to close a little bit more about ongoing crash data analysis. I included a couple slides showing some of the data and how we get it. This is kind of an overall look at the city. I know it's kind of hard to see, but showing serious and fatal crashes for the last 3 years. And then we take this data and we dig down a little bit deeper and can do all kinds of analysis to help us develop, like I said, strategies that answer the problem and concerns that are occurring on the streets. So with that, I guess I'd like to close and thank you for your time and ask if you have any questions.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you. And thanks, Tiana, for the presentation. So I read through the Vision Zero Action Plan. I found that on the website and read through that. I'd love it if you could come back in maybe a couple months and let us know and update us on, there's like 3 pages of strategies. Like, where are we? What have we done?
Okay.
I'd like to be able to see, you know, where we're at, and if we had something that we were going to do in the first year and we haven't done it yet, it might be a good way to remind us that we need to do a little bit more, or do more, not a little bit, but do more. And then the other thing, so the World Remembrance Day is, what's the idea for that? Is that, so the first year you did one thing, the second year you did something different with the signs on the road? What are you looking at doing this year?
Tayani, you want to talk about that? We just had a brainstorming meeting this morning, so it's perfect timing.
Yeah, so really the whole purpose of this event is basically just to acknowledge and remember those that have died in crashes on Tempe. So it's a world event, but specifically we're looking for Tempe streets. And we really just want to bring awareness and try and, you know, like put a face to the name. So like usually, like, you know, you may hear like, oh, someone died on the street, but you don't really think about that. With this day, it's specifically to say like with those shoes, like someone's feet went in those. And so we're not necessarily like changing it up every year. It just happened to be that over the past couple of years, we've had different ideas. So for 2021, we are still planning. We actually just had one of our first meetings today. And what we're looking to do is we are looking at the intersection approach, because we feel that is where you're going to get the most exposure. And we're looking to kind of combine the two things where, you know, it was very like, at the intersection, again, it was just naming one person, but we really want to showcase the fact that like it may be one person at this particular intersection, but citywide, you know, there were 12 people who lost their lives in 2020. So we are, you know, still brainstorming. So if you have any ideas, feel free to share. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I was thinking about this because when I was living in Costa Rica, they put permanent hearts on the road that showed where somebody had passed. And it was a daily reminder all the time, the value of somebody's life and the danger that corner, that intersection or something was. And anyway, I'm just wondering what you guys were going to be doing. I don't have any more questions. Joel, do you have any questions?
No, I think, thank you for the presentation, first off. Obviously, this is a topic that a lot of people in our community really pay attention to make sure that we are addressing the plan going forward with Vision Zero, trying to do more. With us and cities, I think in general, it comes down to budget and just timely, proactively scheduling those improvements as best we can. And we try to manage that with what we provide you guys as staff, as council members, to from what we're hearing from our community, how do we start addressing these problems? So, you know, I love the input that we heard earlier from our people that either were on the call or actually submitted a question or their opinion on what they would like to see going forward, because that's good information for us as we try to make improvements throughout our area. And one of the things that when this first came out is I've always kind of wanted to focus on the downtown, more or less the baseline and north area of our city, and trying to help address a lot of those problems, because we see a lot of our issues are primarily from that location on up. And how do we start making adjustments? I was for, you know, if we wanted to adjust the speeds within those areas above north, into the North Tempe area, because we do have a larger pedestrian bike community in those areas, especially on the off the major streets, and what we can do to make those things safe. Now, College Avenue, I know that's one that's highlighted. I often ride my bike on College and actually around the North Tempe, Central Tempe area, and parts of times and day, you know, the experience that I've had has always been pretty good. But I know that parts of, you know, times of day, you're going to have issues. And one of the issues is, you know, getting to work, dropping the kids off, trying to hightail it in there, and you have pedestrians. What are we, I know that even with, and I've seen this in the communities, and because I'm in the fire department, even when you have traffic mitigation, even when you have the best of things, it's still, you'll have an individual who will still push those limits. And it's not saying that it's going to happen all the time, you're going to lessen it, but you are still going to have those individuals that are going to push those limits. So College Avenue is could have a little bit more buffer, maybe in some locations. I'm sure there's maybe some designs that maybe could enhance a little bit more, but for what it is now, it's not bad. And obviously the speed limits in that area are reduced down to try to get drivers to calm down. But what are we doing with our patrol officers in those areas at certain times of the day? Are we showing a presence with those patrol officers? Because that is really one of the ways we try to get drivers to slow down. And I don't know if there's any input on that from anybody here.
No, as we said, unfortunately, Lieutenant Swig couldn't be here, but I'll certainly pass the comments along to him because you're right. There's nothing like the motorcycle squad to be out there and remind people that we're serious about what the speed limit sign says. So
Right.
I'll let him know that this came up.
Yeah, and I can see it on the, I mean, obviously our main arteries are, you know, tragic, but especially in the peak hours of school time, dropping people off. I mean, just having that notice presence, you know, on the lake shores, on the country clubs, on the college avenues, those types of roads, I think that really does have an impact on our safety. Because in the short term, that's what we have right now. In the long term, yes, can we start making mitigations on those roads to improve them even better? Yeah, that's what we have to do. We can't do this overnight, so to speak, because of all the other things that we have to do. But I think in the short term with our patrol officers, our motorbike officers, you know, I'd love to see a presence, a little bit more presence in those areas if possible. And obviously that'd be something that we would want from PD to kind of chime in maybe next time.
Great, thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Joel. If we don't have any other questions, I just want to tell you, thank you so much, Kathy, and for doing this presentation for us. And we look forward to having you back.
We'll be back.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so our next item is 4B1, and I would like to welcome Assistant Chief of Police Sherry Burlingame and Officer Sarah Saldo, I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong, to make this presentation on the Tempe Police Department's accreditation process. So it's all yours now.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Assistant Chief Sherry Burlingame, and with me is Sarah Saldo. She is our accreditation program manager. Last year, we applied for accreditation, and we were accepted into the Arizona Law Enforcement Accreditation Program. So today we want to talk to you about what exactly that program is and update you on our progress. Next slide, please.
Hey, sorry, Chief, are you seeing the presentation mode? Are you seeing the right big screen?
Yeah, I see the big screen.
Okay. Didn't appear that way on mine. There you go.
Thank you. The Tempe Police Department believes in continuous improvement and conducting critical evaluations of our operations to ensure we are providing excellent service to our community. We stay abreast of national trends to identify new concepts, areas for improvement, and proven methods in our pursuit of professional excellence. Next slide. Accreditation is a formal independent verification that Tempe Police meet established recognized standards. Furthermore, accreditation will aid us in achieving two of our performance measures, 1.07 satisfaction with police services and 2.06 community trust in the police. Accreditation facilitates improved effectiveness and efficiency in the delivery of law enforcement services and helps build community trust. Next slide. So now to give you a little bit more specific information about accreditation, the Arizona Association of Chiefs of Police, ACOP, developed the Arizona Law Enforcement Accreditation Program, known as ALEAP. The standards were developed by police executives and approved by the ACOP Executive Board. These standards were developed using state and national professional standards for law enforcement. There are 174 standards we must comply with. Each of these has several substandards. Annually, we will be required to conduct a review to ensure we're meeting standards and have proof of compliance. Every 4 years, we'll undergo a full assessment to maintain accreditation. The ALEAP accreditation body consists of an independent, impartial subject matter experts who will be responsible for conducting a comprehensive on-site assessment to determine if we have sound written directives that are conceptually and operationally effective. We will also have to demonstrate proof of compliance to the assessors. Next slide, please. So accreditation is a systematic process for establishing and maintaining proven quality standards. Accreditation facilitates decreased liability exposure and costly litigation. It increases accountability, improves our relationship with the community, and improves the efficiency and effectiveness of law enforcement services for our community. Next slide, please. So why should we do this? Accreditation will certify the credibility and professionalism of our agency through an independent review. It's important to note that the established standards outline what we're going to be doing, not how we're going to be doing it. This gives us the flexibility to implement standards in a way that best serves our residents. Annual reviews of the standards ensure we are using the most current and relevant practices. Next slide, please. Why now? Transparency, trust, and credibility with our community have never been more important than now. With the national conversation about policing, and here locally with our conversations with community stakeholders about policing and reform, we felt this was an important step for Tempe to take. We pride ourselves on professionalism and striving for excellence in policing. Becoming accredited is one way for our community to see we are meeting recognized standards and continually striving to improve our service to Tempe. Additionally, last year, an executive order was enacted requiring accreditation to be eligible for grant funding. Next slide, please. This slide outlines some of the many benefits of accreditation, several of which I've mentioned. Most importantly, it minimizes liability and costly litigation, which improves safety for our community and our officers. The 174 standards address a multitude of areas that we must show proficiency in. Accreditation places increased accountability and transparency at the forefront of our organization. Next slide, please. There are 4 steps to the accreditation process. We applied for and were accepted into the ALEAP program and are currently in the process of conducting our self-assessment. For each of the 174 standards and substandards, we must show that we have documented guidelines. We must also show proofs of compliance. This is typically something along the lines of an incident report, body-worn camera footage, forms, an audit log, etc. Once we feel we are in compliance with the standards, assessors will conduct a mock assessment. Impartial experts will inspect our policies and proofs of compliance, provide feedback, and identify any areas for improvement. Lastly, a final assessment is conducted by the accreditation body. This is a full inspection to ensure compliance with all of our standards. Next slide, please. So how does this impact the city and our police employees specifically? Detective Saldo manages our accreditation program. She researches all of our processes and policies for each of the standards. She oversees the process of creating new policies where needed and revising existing ones. She also manages the collection of proofs to demonstrate compliance with the standards. This is an incredibly time-consuming process, as you can imagine. Once we've completed all of that, we can have a mock assessment conducted. The assessors will then identify any issues. We'll have to correct them, and then we can schedule the final assessment. At that time, the assessors will spend 2 days with the Tempe Police Department. They will comb through all of our policies and proofs as evidence that we are meeting standards. They will meet with and interview many of our employees. Assessors will go on ride-alongs with our officers in an effort to better understand our community and our department, as well as to directly observe proofs of compliance. Lastly, they will conduct a public call-in. We will announce the date and time of the call-in ahead of time. Members of our community will be afforded the opportunity to call the assessors and talk about Tempe PD. You are welcome to participate on this if you like. At the end of the assessment, assessors will meet with the department's executive team to review the findings. Next slide, please. So now I'll tell you a little bit about the timeline. We began a process last year when we applied for acceptance to the ALEAP program. That was in July of 2020. We have 2 years and 6 months to pass the final assessment to gain accreditation. Typically, this is a 2-year process, but they updated some of the standards, so they gave us an extra 6-month extension to meet the accreditation requirements. Currently, we're in the process of matching policies and procedures with standards and collecting proofs of compliance. We have policies for 94% of the standards. We are in the process of addressing the last 3 policies. Our target date to achieve accreditation is spring of 2022, well ahead of the established timeline. Next slide, please. We are very excited to be part of the ALEAP accreditation process, and we look forward to achieving accreditation. Accreditation is a significant achievement in our efforts to better serve the city of Tempe. Thank you for your time. Detective Saldo and I are now happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Joel, do you have any questions?
Yeah, no, I first want to say thank you for the presentation, and obviously I do know the importance of the accreditation. I'm going through accreditation right now through our hazmat special operations, and it is important because for us, for teaching, and I would assume even for on the PD side, it's the standards that you're using to teach, to educate our members on what we have to do and the procedures we have to go by and the safety aspects that we try to use. So I think this is outstanding because when you have the accreditation, just like it was mentioned, you have the opportunity for grant funded money from the federal government. You also are keeping those standards that separate us from other possible departments, not only locally, but nationally. And when those things come up, and we talk about our standards for our police officers, and we talk about the accreditations that they have to go through, that just keeps our liability in check. And I think that this is a great thing that we're achieving. I know that there's other things that we still do on top of these accreditations as a police department here locally, and we always have to stay abreast of all the things that come up or new things that come up that pose challenges to police departments or fire departments. It would give you that fact. But I think that what we're doing right now, going through accreditation, is just a huge benefit for us. And I just want to tell you guys thank you for proceeding this. And I think that we need to get this out, not only for this committee, but we need to get it out to our public, either via a work study or just other information that we can show that we are in these processes, and these processes have value to our city and to our officers and to our residents. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
You had mentioned that that we have 174 standards. How many of those come from the national accreditation body? And do you know which one of those are they specific to Arizona, or are they the same everywhere?
I'll let Officer Saldo step in and answer the details of that. It is a combination of both.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Thank you.
absolutely. And hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for having us this afternoon. So I am obviously an officer with Tempe PD, and I'm working on our accreditation right now. To answer your question, Doreen, the 174 standards actually all come from that Associations of Chiefs of Police, that ACOP organization. It's like this huge group of people from departments and like sites all over the state of Arizona that come together and kind of collaborate to make this collection of standards that they believe are the best practices and that best fit what we do here in Arizona. And what I really love about the ALEAP program is, like Chief was explaining, it states like what we have to do, but not how we have to do it, which just gives each department a little bit of room and a little bit of leeway to kind of take it its own direction. Because obviously, you know, we may work differently than like Pinal County Sheriff's Office, for example, or even like a Mesa Police Department. We're very similar to them, but we work differently. So each of the standards does come from that main overseeing organization. And then it's comprised of things like Arizona statute, so ARS, and Arizona state law. And then there's a little bit of like, you know, there are going to be some federal guidelines and things in there that we still have to consider and follow. But yeah, it's kind of just a comprised collection of all of it. I know that doesn't super specifically answer your question, but like Chief was starting to say, it's just kind of everything put together to do what fits best for us.
And
Okay,
just to
great.
add
No,
on
that-
to that, for example, when we're redoing any policy, and I'll just use our use of force policy as an example, because that's probably the most recent and comprehensive example that we have. We look at what the standards are, but then we also look at what are other departments doing? What have we historically done, and what direction do we want to go? What is our community expecting of us? We utilize our citizens review panel, for example, to provide input on what our policy should look like. And then we look at nationally and even internationally, what are they doing? The International Association of the Chiefs of Police has put out a report on best practices and recommendations for use of force. The Police Executive Research Forum has put out a whole book on what they think the guidelines should be for use of force. And these things exist for several other things that we do. So we try to incorporate the best ideas for all of that, tailor them to our community and our police department when we're developing a policy. And we do that across the board pretty much with everything that we do.
Okay, great. No, that does help me, gives me a little bit more information and background on what those standards are. So thank you, Officer Saldo, and thank you so much, Chief Burlingame. I don't have any other questions, but I just want to say that as a resident, I really like knowing that you are going through this process and that the process is independent when it gets reviewed. And I think, you know, as for other residents, I think they're probably, it's good for them to know, and I'm glad you guys are doing it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right, so now we're going to move on to item 4B2. The presentations, is that right? 4B2, yeah. The presentations for the September 24th Human Services and Community Safety Council Committee meeting will be, our topics will be Public Safety Advisory Task Force update, Human Services Department update, and an update on the social detriment of health and the mental health roadmap. And then item C1, we don't have any other announcements. So Joel.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Garland. The next HSCS Council Committee meeting, or I'm sorry, yeah, Council Committee meeting will be September 24th at 12 p.m. And we are adjourned for today.
There you go. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.